The courtroom fell silent as the massive doors slid open with a mechanical hiss. Judge Kay Lara adjusted her ceremonial robes, the deep purple fabric catching the artificial light of the Galactic Council's highest court. Her 4 eyes tracked the movement of the guards as they escorted the human prisoner into the chamber. She had presided over thousands of cases in her 200 years of service, but this was different. This was the first human to stand trial for crimes against the Galactic Federation. The charges were severe: destruction of Federation property, unauthorized use of military vessels, and interference with official Federation operations. If found guilty, the human faced life imprisonment on the prison world of Zerion Prime. The human walked with surprising dignity despite the energy shackles around his wrists. He was tall by galactic standards, though average for his species. His brown hair was unkempt from weeks in detention, and his blue eyes held a defiant spark that made Kay Lara's secondary hearts skip a beat. Most criminals who entered her courtroom showed fear, anger, or resignation. This human showed none of those things. "State your designation for the record," commanded the court clerk, a thin Valdarian whose voice echoed through the chamber's acoustics. "Captain Marcus Chen, formerly of the Earth Colonial Defense Force," the human replied, his voice steady and clear. Kay Lara studied the file projected above her bench. The human's record was surprisingly clean for someone facing such serious charges. No prior violations, commendations for service, and glowing reports from his commanding officers. Whatever had driven him to these alleged crimes must have been extraordinary. The prosecutor, a pompous Zentaurian named Veltar, rose from his position. His scaled skin glistened as he activated the holographic evidence display. "Your Honor, the evidence is overwhelming. This human deliberately destroyed 3 Federation patrol vessels, stole military equipment, and interfered with a sanctioned Federation operation in the Kepler system." Images filled the air above the courtroom. Destroyed ships floating in space, their hulls torn open by weapons fire. Security footage of the human fighting his way through a Federation facility. Testimony from survivors describing the ferocity of his attack. "The Federation's position is clear," Veltar continued, his voice rising with theatrical passion. "This human is a terrorist who must face the full weight of galactic justice. We recommend immediate sentencing to life imprisonment." Kay Lara nodded thoughtfully. The evidence did seem overwhelming, but something nagged at her about this case. The human's actions seemed too precise, too targeted. Professional soldiers didn't typically become random terrorists without reason. "Does the defendant wish to enter a plea?" she asked. Marcus Chen lifted his chin slightly. "Not guilty, Your Honor." A ripple of surprise moved through the gallery. Even Kay Lara felt her ear fronds twitch in amazement. The evidence against him was substantial. What could this human possibly hope to prove? "Very well," she said. "Prosecutor Veltar, you may present your opening statement." The next hour passed in a blur of technical evidence and witness testimony. Security recordings showed the human's ship approaching the Federation facility. Energy signatures proved his weapons had destroyed the patrol vessels. Survivor accounts painted him as a ruthless attacker who showed no mercy. But Kay Lara noticed something odd. Every witness described the human as focused entirely on reaching one specific section of the facility. He had disabled rather than destroyed several ships that could have been threats. When Federation personnel surrendered, he had allowed them to escape rather than eliminating them. These were not the actions of a bloodthirsty terrorist. "Your Honor," Veltar announced, "the prosecution rests. The evidence clearly shows this human's guilt." Kay Lara turned to Marcus Chen. "Does the defendant wish to present a defense?" The human was quiet for a long moment, his eyes distant. When he finally spoke, his voice carried a weight of exhaustion. "I did what I had to do. Sometimes the law isn't enough to protect the innocent." "That sounds like a confession," Veltar said smugly. It's an explanation, Marcus replied firmly. He looked directly at Kaylara, and she was surprised by the intensity in his gaze. Your Honor, I attacked that facility because the Federation was conducting illegal experiments on kidnapped children. I destroyed those ships because they were transporting more victims. I interfered with that operation because it was an abomination that violated every principle the Federation claims to stand for. The courtroom erupted in shocked murmurs. Kaylara banged her ceremonial staff for order. That is a serious accusation, defendant. Do you have evidence to support this claim? Marcus reached toward his chest, causing the guards to tense. But he was only adjusting his shirt, pulling it slightly open to reveal something hanging around his neck. I have this. The guards allowed him to remove the item. It was a necklace, simple but elegant, made of some kind of crystalline material that caught and refracted the courtroom's light. The pendant was shaped like a flower, delicate and beautiful. Kaylara's world stopped. The necklace was identical to the one she had given her daughter Zira for her coming-of-age ceremony 3 years ago. Identical in every detail, from the specific cut of the crystal to the unique pattern of the chain links. She had commissioned it personally from the finest artisan on her homeworld. There was only one like it in the entire galaxy. The ceremonial staff slipped from her suddenly nerveless fingers, clattering to the floor. Her vision blurred as both sets of eyes struggled to focus. The secondary hearts that had served her faithfully for 2 centuries began to beat erratically. "Where did you get that?" she whispered, her voice barely audible even in the silent courtroom. Marcus looked down at the necklace, his expression softening. "A brave little girl gave it to me. She said it was her most precious possession, but she wanted me to have it so I would remember her." Kaylara's mind reeled. 3 years ago, her daughter Zira had disappeared while on a research expedition near the Kepler system. The official report said their ship had suffered engine failure and been lost with all hands. Search teams had found debris, but no survivors. Kaylara had mourned her brilliant, curious daughter while trying to accept that her body would never be recovered from the void of space. But if this human had Zira's necklace... "What was her name?" Kaylara asked, her voice trembling despite her efforts to maintain judicial composure. "She told me to call her Starflower," Marcus said softly. "She said her real name was too difficult for humans to pronounce, but that Starflower meant the same thing in my language." Zira. In the old tongue of Kaylara's people, Zira meant starflower. Her daughter had always loved that translation. "She was alive?" Kaylara could barely form the words. Marcus nodded slowly. "When I found her, yes. She was in the experimentation facility along with dozens of other children from across the galaxy. The Federation scientists were conducting neural manipulation experiments, trying to enhance psychic abilities through surgical intervention." The courtroom began to spin around Kaylara. She gripped the edge of her bench, her claws leaving scratches in the metal surface. "The facility you attacked was where they were holding her," Marcus confirmed, "where they were torturing her and the others in the name of scientific advancement. When I learned what was happening there, I couldn't stand by and let it continue." Veltar rose from his seat, his scales darkening with anger. "Your Honor, this is obviously a desperate fabrication designed to—" "Silence!" Kaylara's voice cracked like thunder through the courtroom. Every being present fell absolutely still. In 200 years of service, no one had ever heard Judge Kaylara lose her composure. She stared at the necklace in Marcus Chen's hands, at the delicate crystal flower that had once rested against her daughter's throat. The human story was impossible to believe, yet the evidence hung there before her eyes. If Zira had been alive 3 years ago, if she had been held in that Federation facility, if this human had tried to rescue her, then everything about this case was wrong. Everything about the Federation's version of events was a lie. "Court is adjourned," she announced, her voice barely under control. "Guards, return the defendant to holding. All parties will reconvene tomorrow morning." As the courtroom emptied, Kaylara remained at her bench, staring at the spot where Marcus Chen had stood. In her mind, she could see Zira's face on the day she had given her the necklace. Her daughter's eyes had sparkled with joy and excitement about her upcoming research mission. A mission that had supposedly ended in her death, but had actually led to something far worse. For the first time in her judicial career, Kaylara wondered if the law she had sworn to uphold was being used to hide the very crimes it should punish. 3 months earlier, Captain Marcus Chen had been enjoying the closest thing to shore leave that deep space allowed. His cargo hauler, the Meridian, was docked at Outpost Kappa for routine maintenance when the distress signal reached his communications array. It was weak, barely detectable, and broadcasting on an emergency frequency that hadn't been used in decades. Most captains would have ignored it as static or equipment malfunction. But Marcus had learned during his years in the Colonial Defense Force that the faintest signals sometimes carried the most important messages. "Computer, clean up that transmission and replay," he commanded. The ship's AI worked for several minutes, filtering out cosmic interference and amplifying the signal. When it finally played back, Marcus felt his blood run cold. It was a child's voice, speaking in broken Standard Galactic. "Please, someone help us. They hurt us every day. Experiments. So many of us dying. Please." The signal cut out, but not before Marcus's navigation system had traced its origin. It came from the Kepler system, specifically from coordinates that, according to his star charts, should have been empty space. Marcus stared at the readout for a long time. He was a civilian cargo hauler now, no longer bound by military duty to respond to distress calls. He had his own ship to think about, his own life to protect. The sensible thing would be to report the signal to Federation authorities and let them handle it. But the voice had been so young, so full of pain and terror. His hands moved over the control panel almost without conscious thought. Within an hour, the Meridian was racing toward the Kepler system at maximum sustainable velocity. The journey took 2 weeks. During that time, Marcus researched everything he could find about Federation operations in the region. Officially, there was nothing there except automated research stations studying stellar formation. No inhabited worlds, no major shipping routes, nothing that would explain a distress call. But Marcus had learned not to trust official records during his military service. Some of the Federation's darkest secrets were hidden in the spaces between star charts. When he reached the coordinates, Marcus found something that shouldn't have existed. A massive space station hung in the void, its architecture unfamiliar and somehow wrong. It was larger than most planetary cities, bristling with defensive weapons and surrounded by patrol ships. Marcus powered down all but essential systems and drifted closer, using debris from a nearby asteroid field for cover. His ship's passive sensors picked up energy signatures consistent with high-level scientific equipment, but also something else. The distinctive resonance of neural activity monitors, dozens of them. He had seen that signature before during the war in Federation research facilities that officially didn't exist. Facilities where captured enemy soldiers disappeared forever, where the screaming stopped only when the test subjects died. Marcus spent 3 days observing the station, mapping guard rotations and scanning for weaknesses. The distress signal came again twice during his vigil, each time weaker than before. Each time he heard the same young voice begging for help that might never come. On the 4th day, he made his move. The Meridian was a cargo hauler, not a warship, but Marcus had made modifications over the years. Hidden weapon ports opened as he accelerated toward the station's docking bay. The patrol ships reacted quickly, but not quickly enough. Marcus had fought in 17 major battles during the colonial wars. He knew how to make every shot count, how to disable rather than destroy when possible, how to create maximum confusion with minimum force. The patrol ships found themselves overwhelmed by tactics they couldn't counter. Two of the vessels surrendered immediately when their engines were disabled. The third tried to ram the Meridian and had to be destroyed. Marcus felt sick as he watched the explosion, knowing there had been living beings aboard, but he couldn't let them stop him from reaching whoever was calling for help. The station's defense systems were more challenging. Automated turrets tracked his approach while shield barriers tried to block his access to the docking port. Marcus pushed his ship beyond safe limits, using every trick he had learned in combat to reach the station's hull. He blasted through the docking bay doors and set the Meridian down hard, emergency klaxons blaring throughout the facility. Security forces were already mobilizing, but Marcus was counting on confusion to give him the time he needed. His exploration of the station's interior confirmed his worst fears. This was indeed a Federation black site research facility, the kind that existed only in classified files and intelligence reports. The corridors were lined with holding cells, most of them empty now, but the few that were occupied made Marcus's heart break. Children of a dozen different species huddled in the cramped spaces. Some were so young they could barely walk. Others showed the terrible marks of surgical intervention, neural implants, modified limbs, eyes that no longer focused properly on the world around them. "Who are you?" whispered a small figure in one of the cells. Marcus turned to see a young alien girl with delicate features and large, intelligent eyes. Her skin had a faint lavender tint, and 4 small eye spots dotted her forehead in a pattern that reminded him of flower petals. "I'm here to help," Marcus said softly, working on the cell's locking mechanism. "I heard your distress call." The girl's eyes went wide with hope and disbelief. "You came because of my signal. I've been broadcasting for months, but no one ever answered." "What's your name?" "Zira," she said. "But the humans here call me Starflower because they say my real name is too hard." Marcus got the cell open and knelt down to her level. She was so small, so fragile, yet her eyes held a strength that reminded him of the best soldiers he had served with. "How long have you been here, Starflower?" "Since my ship crashed 2 years ago," she said. "They told my family I was dead, but they brought me here instead. They've been doing things to my brain, trying to make me read thoughts without permission. It hurts so much." 2 years. Marcus felt rage building in his chest like a physical force. This child had been held and tortured for 2 years while her family mourned her death. "We're going to get you out of here," he promised. "You and all the others." But even as he said it, Marcus knew it might be impossible. The station was heavily defended, and he was just one man with a cargo ship. The alarm systems were bringing more security forces every minute. Zira seemed to understand his doubt. She reached up and touched a delicate necklace around her throat, a crystalline flower that caught the harsh artificial light beautifully. "My mother gave this to me," she said. "She told me it would protect me and bring me home someday." She lifted the necklace over her head and held it out to Marcus. "I want you to have it. Starflower, no, that's your most precious possession." "That's why you should take it," she insisted. "So you'll remember us, even if you can't save us all. So you'll tell the galaxy what happened here." Marcus accepted the necklace with hands that trembled slightly. The crystal was warm from her skin and seemed to pulse with its own inner light. "I promise I'll remember, and I promise I'll save as many of you as I can." He managed to free 18 children before the security forces cornered him. The escape pods on the station became their salvation. Marcus loaded the children into them one by one, programming the pods to navigate to the nearest inhabited system with instructions to contact the nearest embassy. Zira was in the last pod. As Marcus sealed the hatch, she pressed her small hands against the transparent aluminum viewing port. "Thank you for keeping your promise," she whispered. Marcus activated the launch sequence, watching as the pod accelerated away from the station towards safety. Then he turned to face the Federation security teams that had finally tracked him down. The fight that followed was brief and brutal. Marcus disabled as much of the station's equipment as possible before they overwhelmed him. The research data, the torture devices, the evidence of what had been done to those children. He destroyed everything he could reach. They captured him eventually, as he had known they would. But it didn't matter. 18 children were free, racing towards safety in their escape pods. The Federation would have to explain how those children had survived when they were supposed to be dead. Questions would be asked that the Federation wouldn't want to answer. As they dragged him to a holding cell, Marcus touched the necklace hanging around his neck. Starflower's gift felt warm against his chest, a reminder of why he had chosen to sacrifice his freedom. He had kept his promise. He would remember them all, and when the time came, he would tell their story to anyone who would listen, even if it cost him everything. Judge Kaylara spent the night in her private chambers, unable to sleep or eat. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Zira's face as she had given her the necklace 3 years ago. Her daughter had been so excited about the research expedition, so eager to contribute to galactic scientific knowledge. To think that instead of dying in an engine failure, Zira had spent 2 years being tortured in a Federation facility was almost more than Kaylara's hearts could bear. But Marcus Chen's words had carried the weight of absolute truth, and the necklace was proof that could not be denied. As dawn broke over the court complex, Kaylara made a decision that would define the rest of her career. She activated her personal communication array and sent a coded message to her nephew Jorik, who worked in Federation intelligence. If anyone could access the classified files about what had really happened in the Kepler system, it would be him. The response came faster than she had dared hope. Jorik's encrypted transmission contained files that officially didn't exist. Records of a black site research facility, progress reports on neural experimentation, and a list of test subjects that made Kaylara's blood freeze in her veins. Zira's name was on that list, not as a casualty of engine failure, but as Subject 47 Alpha, a juvenile test case for psychic enhancement procedures. But there was more. The files contained security footage from the day Marcus Chen had attacked the facility. Kaylara watched in amazement as the human fought through corridors filled with armed guards, never stopping to rest, never retreating even when outnumbered. And then she saw something that broke her heart entirely. The footage showed Zira in her cell, looking weak and ill from the procedures that had been performed on her. But when Marcus reached her, her face transformed with hope and joy. Kaylara watched her daughter give the necklace to the human, saw the gentle way he knelt to speak with her, witnessed the care with which he loaded her into the escape pod. The last image showed Zira's pod accelerating away from the station toward safety. According to the file timestamps, she should have reached the nearest Federation outpost within days. So why had no one ever reported her survival? Kaylara sent another urgent message to Jorik, demanding to know what had happened to the rescue pods. His reply came just as the court was scheduled to reconvene, and it filled her with a cold fury that threatened to overwhelm her judicial training. The escape pods had indeed reached Federation Outpost Delta 7. But instead of reporting the children as survivors of an illegal research program, the outpost commander had followed secret protocols. The children were classified as compromised assets and transferred to another black site facility for debriefing and processing. They had been sent right back into the system that had tortured them. As Kaylara entered the courtroom that morning, her rage was visible to everyone present. Her normally careful composure was replaced by an aura of dangerous energy that made even the guards step back nervously. "Court is now in session," she announced, her voice cutting through the chamber like a blade. "Before we continue with the prosecution's case, I have some questions for the Federation representatives." Prosecutor Veltar looked confused. "Your Honor, I don't understand. We were scheduled to present our closing arguments." "The prosecution will remain silent," Kaylara commanded. She activated the courtroom's holographic display system and uploaded the files Jorek had provided. I want to know why the Federation has classified records of the facility that Captain Chen is accused of attacking. The files filled the air above the courtroom. Medical records, experiment logs, security footage, all of it bearing official Federation seals and classified markings. The gallery erupted in shocked gasps as the true nature of the Kepler facility became clear. Veltar rose from his seat, his scales pale with panic. Your Honor, those documents are classified beyond your security clearance. They cannot be admitted as evidence. They are already admitted, Kalara replied coldly. As the presiding judge, I am exercising emergency judicial authority under Article 7 of the Galactic Justice Code. When evidence suggests systematic Federation involvement in crimes against sapient beings, all classification restrictions are void. She turned to Marcus Chen, who stood watching the proceedings with calm dignity. Captain Chen, you stated that you rescued 18 children from the Kepler facility. What happened to them after they escaped? I programmed their pods to navigate to the nearest Federation outpost, Marcus replied. I believed they would be safe there. Kalara's expression grew darker. According to these classified files, those children were recaptured and transferred to another research facility. They were never reported as survivors, never reunited with their families. The Federation used your rescue operation as an opportunity to acquire more test subjects. The silence in the courtroom was absolute. Even Veltar seemed stunned by this revelation. Your Honor, Marcus said quietly, are you telling me that I failed? That those children— You did not fail, Kalara said firmly. You acted with courage and compassion to save innocent lives. The failure belongs to the system that betrayed your heroism and those children's trust. She turned back to the holographic displays, highlighting specific entries. These records show that my own daughter Zira was among the children you rescued. The necklace you wear belonged to her. It was her most precious possession, yet she gave it to you as a token of gratitude for risking everything to save her. The gallery buzzed with amazement. Several reporters were frantically taking notes, realizing they were witnessing one of the most significant trials in galactic history. According to these files, Kalara continued, Zira survived for 6 months after your rescue before dying during another experimental procedure. If the Federation had simply returned her to her family as any civilized organization would have done, she would still be alive today. Marcus closed his eyes, pain visible on his face. I'm sorry, he whispered. I thought I was saving them. I thought they would go home. You gave them hope, Kalara said, her voice gentler now. You gave them proof that someone cared enough to risk everything for their freedom. For children who had been abandoned by the galaxy, your actions showed them that compassion still existed. She stood from her bench, her ceremonial robes flowing around her. This court finds Captain Marcus Chen not guilty of all charges. Furthermore, this court recommends that the Federation Council immediately launch a full investigation into the illegal research programs revealed by today's evidence. Veltar leaped to his feet. Your Honor, you cannot simply dismiss these charges. The defendant destroyed Federation property, killed Federation personnel. The defendant acted to prevent ongoing crimes against children, Kalara replied sharply. Any property destroyed and personnel killed were part of an illegal operation that violated every principle of Federation law. Captain Chen's actions were not only justified, they were heroic. She turned to address the packed gallery. Let it be recorded that today, this court witnessed the exposure of a massive conspiracy within the Federation itself. Innocent children from across the galaxy have been kidnapped, tortured, and murdered in the name of scientific advancement. The only crime committed here was the Federation's betrayal of everything it claims to stand for. As the guards moved to remove Marcus's restraints, he looked up at Kalara with tears in his eyes. She was special, your daughter. Even after everything they did to her, she still believed in helping others. She told me that hope was the most powerful force in the universe. Kealara felt her own eyes moisten. She was right. Your willingness to answer her distress call, to sacrifice your freedom for children you had never met, proves that hope can inspire beings to greatness. The courtroom erupted as reporters rushed to file their stories. Within hours, news of the trial would spread across the galaxy. Federation officials would be forced to answer uncomfortable questions. Families who had lost children in mysterious accidents would demand investigations. But for Kealara, the most important moment came when Marcus Chen approached her bench and carefully removed the crystal necklace from around his neck. "This belongs with you," he said softly. "I kept my promise. I remembered her, and I told her story. But now she can come home." Kealara accepted the necklace with trembling hands. The crystal flower caught the courtroom lights, seeming to glow with its own inner warmth. She could almost feel Zira's presence, her daughter's spirit finally at peace. "Thank you," she whispered, "for everything you did, for keeping your promise." Marcus nodded and turned to leave, but Kealara called after him. "Captain Chen, what will you do now?" He paused in the doorway, his expression thoughtful. "There are probably other facilities out there, other children calling for help. I think I'll keep listening for distress signals." As he walked away, Kealara realized that she was witnessing something remarkable. This human had lost his freedom, his career, and nearly his life trying to save strangers. Yet he was already planning to do it again. Perhaps that was what made humanity special in the galaxy. Not their technology or their military might, but their capacity to care for others regardless of species, distance, or personal cost. Their willingness to answer the call when innocents needed help. Kealara looked down at the necklace in her hands, at the crystal flower that had traveled from her daughter to a human hero and back to her again. It had become a symbol of something greater than any of them. Proof that compassion could bridge any gap, overcome any obstacle, and ultimately triumph over even the darkest evil. The galaxy would remember this day, she knew. They would remember the human who risked everything for children he had never met, and the judge who chose justice over institutional loyalty. But most importantly, they would remember that hope, once kindled, could never truly be extinguished. Somewhere in the void between stars, other children might be calling for help, and thanks to Captain Marcus Chen and others like him, the galaxy would be listening.